I'm super excited to welcome you all here today. I think it's going to be a really great conversation. My name is Shawn Wilkie. I'm the CEO of a company called Talkatoo, where every day we try to give veterinary professionals time back in their day. I'm also the co-host of the Veterinary Innovation podcast. And that was one of the first times I got to talk to this guest today. Julien was on a bunch of podcasts and webinars that we've done in the past around the start of the pandemic. And I think our introduction goes all the way back to maybe 2019, Julien, where we met in Las Vegas. So Julien and me have been friends since 2019. He does some really cool stuff. Julien was a co-founder of a company called Vetstoria, where really every single day they're trying to help people optimize their calendars in the vet practice, make it easier for pet parents to interact with the vet clinics that they do business with, that care for their pets. And the reason, I guess really the reason they're trying to do it is to help people spend less time on the phone and spend more time caring for pets. They integrate with pretty much every practice management system in the world. And they've done some really amazing things to help veterinarians get more time back in their day and spend more time caring for pets. Julien, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We've been talking about this particular topic for a little while now. I'm super excited about it. And, you know, there's nobody that I know better to talk about kind of optimizing the schedule for a veterinary practice than you. Yeah, I think you've done it for probably around 4,000 or maybe plus or minus clinics from Europe, Asia, all around the world. So when we started to kind of throw around this idea of some of the data that was coming out of this work that you guys were doing, I thought that our entire webinar audience would be could really benefit from it, because, you know, not all vet clinics are created the same. But after looking at 4,000 of them, there's probably a few things that you've learned that the people that have joined us today can benefit from. So I guess at this point, Julien, I'm going to throw it over to you. Once again, thanks for coming. I'm going to facilitate questions. So please throw them in the chat and we'll have time at the end to talk about questions. But if you've got one that comes up as you're seeing what Julien's talking about, don't miss it. Put it in the chat so that we can cover it at the end. And with that, over to you, my friend.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Do you see?
I can even see the screen, man. You're good. You got this technology thing down pat. Vet turned computer scientist.
All right. So actually, one slide too fast. Well, hi everyone. Appreciate you taking some of your very precious time to attend this webinar. So yeah, thank you. Now, a lot of practices have been busier than ever. I mean, we have seen that for the last few years now. And the goal today will be to first review practices, productivity, and team utilization. But what we will do is we'll be focusing on sharing data, some data point with you that have been generated through the Vetstoria software. And we believe that these data points will be very useful to you, simply because you'll be able to compare and benchmark your data with what you see, what we see in the industry. Now, why data? That's a good question. So while discussing this webinar, Shawn mentioned the famous statement from the British physicist and mathematician William Thomson Kelvin, and the statement says, what is not defined cannot be measured, what is not measured cannot be improved, and what is not improved is always degraded. Now, his point was, we do not improve as much as we could simply because we do not use the right tool, or we are just not sufficiently aware. And if we think about it, I used to practice for many years, and veterinarian, they just use data all day long to practice their day-to-day activity. We monitor and improve health of patient, and for this we are using data points such as the vital signs, for example, heart rate, temperature, the rest rate, the diagnostic related information, the labs, the X-ray. I mean, this is all data that we keep monitoring, and we assess whether or not the health of our patients are improving or is improving. So that's for the medical aspect of what is our job, and I guess the main part of it. But we run practices, which are businesses, and for this we also monitor the financial data, and usually practice monitor this very, very closely. Now, for hospital, when it comes to the operation and organization, a lot of practices might have a limited visibility on some key operational data that we believe are essential to simply run better your business. Now, why operational data are important? So I'm sure that lots of people, which have been attending, this webinar, went through or are still going through challenging time because of the high volume of work they are facing at work. Now, for months at Vetstoria, we have heard, oh, we are too busy and super overwhelmed, or please turn off new clients, we can't see them. And this was a general feedback or atmosphere that we had. Now, it's still the case for some practices. For some things have improved a little bit, but still generally practices are very, very busy. Now, the reason is a combination of factors, increased pet ownership during the pandemic. Let's not go through this discussion right now. There's a shortage of veterinarian. Only, I think, one applicant for every 10 jobs today as an applicant. So practices are quite a lot understaffed. And we have the third element, which is the staff attrition. Now, we're not going to go into the details of the pet ownership and staff shortages, as simply you will not be able to have an impact on this at your practice level. However, when it comes to the staff attrition, keeping staff happy and keeping this staff attrition, as limited as possible, you can definitely have an impact on. Now, it means that measuring and finding some KPI to monitor this staff retention will have to be done. Now, we have here some numbers. HAHA benchmark data puts the average veterinary team turnover at 23% per year. And that's data collected across 600 practices. It means that 1 out of 4 people working in vet practice are either leaving or starting a new job every year. So a good practice would be aiming for 23% less, but really they recommend that the best practice should be aiming at a 13% maximum attrition. So, you want just to leave me? I'm just doing a webinar now. Thank you very much. Sorry. Actually, just realized that there is a mistake here. Should be aiming for 13% retention. Is actually 13% maximum attrition. Okay, I'm sure you understood that. Now, Vetstoria is certainly not an HR software, and measuring retention is not what we do. So why is Vetstoria relevant to discuss operational data? There's a lot of things happening in a practice, but the real core operational activity of a practice is actually to deliver consultation. It can be called visit in the US, that's a term which is also really used. And at Vetstoria, the core of what we do is to actually understanding how diaries are set up or calendars are set up. This understanding puts us in a very, very good position to improve staff utilization, staff experience, profitability, and ultimately retention by just scheduling better. Okay. Now we have recently released a new software which is called field rate platform, and this software, don't get scared by just the picture there, but the software is going to analyze all practice schedule appointments. It's a tool which is mainly used by corporate users, and is going to give an overview of the schedule across a very large portfolio of practices and doctors. As I say, it's mainly used by the corporate, especially the people working at the head office, leadership team, marketing, and operation team. Now, also this tool is mainly used by corporates. The metric that the software is using and the associated benchmark can be used by pretty much any practice, and this is what we're going to discuss now. Now, let's go through 5 scheduling KPIs that we believe should be measured and would be useful to improve your practice operation, and then ultimately the way we see it for the retention. Now I'll keep going. Shawn, any question?
Yeah, I have a question just for our audience. What the heck is a KPI, Julien?
That's a very good question. It means key performance indicator. I guess we can call it a metric, something that you want to measure. Does it make sense? Happy with the definition?
I was with you the whole time. I remembered that you became a software founder and forgot that not everybody in the vet knows these SaaS terms. So wanted to throw it there for the audience.
That's a totally fair comment. So yeah, it's a metric, something, a number that needs a parameter would be a similar word used in a blood test. So a number that you want to monitor and is going to show you how you're trending. That's very much what a KPI is. Now, we are going to show you some median data that you will be able to use to benchmark and compare with the data that you could potentially have at your clinic level. Now, I want just to be very clear from the very beginning. I have absolutely no intention to tell you how to run your practice. I've worked in several practices, and I recognize that practices, there's a lot of different type of practices, and they are pretty much all unique. So that's something which is very important. The second point is data without context are less meaningful. So the context is super, super important. You know, if you monitor the heart rate of a Labrador, which is coming back from the park and we went for a run, and the same Labrador which is napping on your sofa, this is the same dog, but the heart rate will be completely different. And the interpretation of this heart rate require you to understand the context. Same thing with this tool. There are some tools, some practices, which are in the countryside and small, and you can compare it with a practice which is larger, which is in the suburban area. we produce data for both types of practices. However, context is important to make the interpretation. Okay. Now, let's go for the first metric. So 5 of these are going to come. We can go through question afterwards, but the first one, which is the key metric of the software, is actually giving the name of the software is field rate. Field rate will be the percentage of the schedule that is filled or that has been filled. And the goal is to measure how busy the practice is. Now, the calculation is done by doing the total hours of appointment scheduled over the total hours of slots that were open for consultation. And down the bottom over there, you see that the lower, across all the practices that we are measuring, it goes as low as 15%, obviously not very busy, up to 98%, and the median data is 72%. Okay. Next one, appointment duration, pretty simple to understand, the time spent per patient or delivering a consultation or a visit. The goal is to measure trends of the doctor's time spent on consulting. And we are going to simply calculating this by doing the total hours of appointment delivered over the total number of consultation. And here in the US, I mean, these are US data, by the way. These are the median number go to 30 minutes. Yeah, there are practices delivering 2 hours consultation. There are some appointments which are 5 minutes, like a very quick recheck or stitches removal. But the median numbers is at 30 minutes.
That's an interesting, Julien. I just want to comment on it. You know, lots of data has come both of our ways, and we often hear the average visit is 20 minutes in the US, but it's interesting because across, you know, thousands of practices, the average visit here looks to be 30, not 20, which is kind of interesting.
That's correct. That's correct. Consulting rate. Now that's an interesting, very interesting one. It's the percentage of doctor's time spent on consultation. I'm Julien, I'm a vet. I'm working 40 hours per week. My consulting rate will be 50% if I'm spending 20 hours of my time available for consultation. The rest of my time could be available for inpatient, for surgery, for admin work, but my consulting rate is 50% because I'm spending 20 hours of my time available to deliver consultation. Doesn't mean that I'm delivering 20 hours. If I have a fill rate of 100%, yes, I'll be doing 20 hours of consultation. But that's a very interesting metric. And here, we see that the median number goes 60%. Okay? So if I'm on 10 hours, if I'm on 10 hours per week, I'm spending 6 hours of my time available for consultation. Okay. Same day appointments. It's the percentage of appointments which are booked and delivered on the same day. It's very, very important metric to measure the trends of forward bookings and really the capacity of a practice to see sick patient or urgent appointments. A pet is sick, usually needs to be seen fairly quickly. I'm not talking about emergency here, I'm talking about urgent appointment. Okay, my pet has been vomiting, please see me rapidly. It's not like, oh yeah, you can come in 4 days. So really the same day appointment / 24 hours, it's this kind of window to which your practice will be able to see a sick patient. So the median data is 18%. Now we have practice which goes as low as 4% of the appointment which are booked on the day. And we have practices which are booking more than half of their appointment on the day. Now, as I say, median data is 18%. Okay. And then the last one, availability rate at 7 days. So the 4 first metrics are historical information. How busy we were, fill rate over the last, the appointment duration, same thing, historical, consulting rate, historical, same day appointment, historical data, past data. Availability rate is what's happening in the future. Okay? And this is, in this case, it's a 7 days, but we can extend the period. It's really the percentage of the schedule that remain to be filled. We are Monday, for the next 7 days, we have an availability rate of X. Okay, so measuring the trends of hours remaining to be filled and which are unused. And we do that by calculating the total hours of slot remaining unfilled over the total hours of slots that were open. Median number, 28%. Okay, but we have practices that within the next 7 days have 2% of availability. So extremely busy. Okay. Any question on this? I'm sure that's
yeah,
really
we do have, they are coming in. So yeah, and let's do them in real time. So I think it's fun. One, I just want to comment, like, this is really fascinating, right? If we go back to your first slide, if you don't define what you're measuring and you don't measure it, things are going to get worse. So after reviewing 4,000 practices, here's a good idea of maybe what a practice could measure to improve their schedule. We're going to get into more of it. But Julien, the question that we've got posed is, we designate 1 day each week for doctors to be only in surgery. How do we factor that into the consulting rate calculation?
Okay. The tool is going to analyze the way we do it. We are going to analyze and understand the diary and the calendars of practices. So the times spent delivering a consultation will be clearly defined within the PIMS calendars. When it comes to surgery, we don't, at the moment, factor this into the consultation time. The reason is doctors and, I guess, people managing the diary of the clinician are often not allocating a precise and defined time for surgery. So you might say, all right, I'm just going to do a cat castration. I'm booking an hour for this. Now the cat castration might take 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So very often the surgery, when it comes to the diary setup, the surgery will be listed on top of a column in the PIMS calendars, and defining clearly the time spent on surgery is not associated, is not a true representation in the PIMS. Okay, so it's very hard to make sense of the surgical time simply by looking at the PIMS diary. Okay, this is why we take it out, and this is why we are using this consulting rate. And the consulting rate doesn't include the surgical time the surgical time that a doctor could be delivering. So we take it out.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and I think anybody that's asking that question, they could put it back into the consulting rate if they knew precisely how long those surgeries are taking or had that data. And it seemed like it fits in that category.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Okay, well, we've got more questions, but I'm going to let you keep going. We'll come back to them.
Okay. Well, the last slide is very much the conclusion here. So I understand that operational data and scheduling KPIs might not be a super exciting concept for veterinarians. However, we all enjoy working in a well-organized and set up environment. So scheduling efficiently and making the best use of all staff time is essential to run a successful practice. So it just means measuring and monitoring. So let's just think about this monitoring KPI as the heart rate and the temperature of your practice when it comes to the operation. So that makes it a bit less scary and hopefully a little bit less scary and boring. It will support your staff retention and ultimately help you deliver a good client experience and pet care. I mean, I mentioned the clinic will have an on-the-day appointment of 4%. Making sure there is availability for sick patient helps deliver a good client experience. If pet owners say that my dog is sick and then I'm sorry, I can't see you today because we don't have any room to see you, it's a challenge to deliver good pet care if urgent and sick patient cannot be seen. And in order to make sure that the situation improves, measuring the same day appointment if you are struggling for the on-the-day appointment is something that you can do in order to clearly give the guidelines or the way that your receptionist should schedule appointment in order to make room for the sick patient to be seen.
Yeah, I think it's an appropriate time for me to jump in, Julien, because I've got so much that I want to kind of dive into a little bit more. But the first thing I want to do is get you to go back to that last slide. And if you're a practice owner, if you're a veterinarian, I'm not going to tell you to run out and buy the fill rate software from Julien. Sorry, Julien. But you can if you want. It's there. But what I would like everybody to do, if it makes sense for you, is just grab your cell phone and take a picture of this. I mean, this is data that's come across 4,000 hospitals. These are some idea of what you could measure to help improve your calendar, your diary, your schedule. And I think the message that I've got is improving the schedule leads to happier people, leads to better retention. And that's something that everybody in vet med right now is conquering. So, Julien, questions that I want to tease out of you. What does it mean to slow down, to speed up? And how does that apply to the stuff that we just talked about? And what would your advice be for a veterinarian that's just witnessed this and just seen this data? And maybe I'll get you to kill the screen share and we can just banter back and forth here for a little bit.
Okay, so do you want me to stop sharing? Sorry, the connection dropped.
Yeah. Just kill the screen share and we'll look at your pretty mug.
Just a quick comment because I want to make sure I'm clear. The data is not coming. Vetstoria is implemented for online booking across 4,000 practices. This software is not yet implemented 1,000. I mean, it's hundreds at the moment. It's not 4,000. But the number of data point collected at this stage makes the data fairly reliable.
So then back to my question, Julien, what does it mean if you're an independent practice, just listen to this webinar, seeing these KPIs, what does it mean to slow down, to speed up? And what advice do you have for practice managers, veterinarians that are worried about the chaoticness of their schedule? What advice do you have and what am I trying to tease out of you here, my friend?
Well, my advice is, first of all, pick up the KPI that you would like to, pick up the KPI, that's one thing. Less scary and boring than it sounds. Thinking about the heart rate and the temperature of the operation of your practice and identify one KPI that is problematic. I gave the example of same-day appointment. Okay, we don't have enough room to see sick patient. Okay, so one KPI that should be monitored because you have a problem to fill on the day appointment. Then communicating this KPI to the staff member, okay, make it something which is part of the, not the day-to-day operation, but the weekly catch-up. Okay, receptionist team, we have a problem for on-the-day appointment. We are at 6%. It means that we have to decline seeing sick patient. Not great for the experience of our customers. We want to make sure we can see sick patient, make sure that the staff is aware. The big problem of KPI, if KPI are just followed by management, it can be a big problem because the people that have an impact on this KPI are the people which are on the field. You know, in this example, if the receptionist don't fully understand and measure the issue, it's very challenging to see an improvement. So KPI, yes. First of all, limited number of KPIs, picking up the APIs that they have a problem, and second, making sure the staff is aware and, you know, communicating about the improvement or not of the KPI you're monitoring. But the target should be clear. So
everybody
KPI,
needs to be involved, right? It can't just be for, you know, the person at the top. It has to be for the technician or the everybody. They need all. And Julien, the thing that we chatted about when we were kind of preparing for the webinar was this idea that veterinarians like to see same day urgent sick patients. Tell me about that a little bit, because it directly relates to that, you know, time for emergencies. What does that do to the staff?
Well, I mean, you know, I was a veterinarian, and you know, when you start the vet school, I was explaining you know.
Correct you. You still are a veterinarian.
So I'm less involved on the clinical aspect, but you're right. And when we start the vet school, we have the ambition to treat pets, and it's something which is you know exciting. Now, usually I classify the type of consultation a general practice do in two main categories. You have the you have the all the consultation which are related to wellness. There is no sick patient involved. That's consultation that can be planned well in advance. And then you have the sick patient. And the sick patient, usually the patient needs to be seen within a fairly limited or within a timeline which is fairly limited. And then the third category, I guess, they are the emergency appointment that needs to be seen now. And a lot of veterinarians start their university or school to actually deal with consultation 3 and 2. You know, the wellness, yes, it's very, very important, but you know, treating pets and making pets feeling treating pets is something that is important for veterinarian. It makes our job interesting, very, very and challenging. If this part of the work is taken away or less possible because appointments are scheduled in a way that makes a practice less available to see this type of consultation, it's a problem for the doctors. It's and this is my personal opinion, it makes our day-to-day life less interesting, less challenging, simply because we can't treat patients when they need us. So that's the way I see it. So making sure
it's
that
really interesting, because you're hitting on a couple of things there. Staff retention. So like people that enjoy their job, stay at their job. And then you're hitting at another thing, which is, you know, a sick patient is an opportunity for a client for a very long time. But if you've got a sick puppy and you call the clinic and they can't see you for another week, they're going down the street for sure. Right?
That's the relationship and the client bonds really with their clinic when they need them. And yes, a wellness exam, client needs you to do the wellness exam, but really the relationship will be even stronger if you are there when they really need you, and they really need you when the pet is sick. So it's super, super important to be available at that time. That's when the loyalty happens. The third thing is there is a direct link with the profitability and the financial element of the business, which is, well, a sick patient involves doing sometime, not always, but sometime investigation, blood test, X-rays. That's make the work of a veterinarian interesting, but that also generate revenue. So all is linked.
It's so funny how much comes out of the calendar, right? And I think where I'd like to direct the conversation next is, you've got this data, you've seen it, you've got a wide audience here. There's almost 100 people, and maybe they're not measuring these things now. So what should they do after this webinar? I don't want read this book, take these instructions, give 2 or 3 practical things that somebody could do right now to improve their business through their scheduling.
Well, take the last months or even the last 7 days of your PIMS diary and calculate fill rate, appointment type, maybe not, but if we say fill rate, availability rate, and same day appointment, you just do that. That's the starting point. Second, what's your problem too? I mean, I'm mentioning these key metrics because for me they are essential. But if you have a problem, start by measuring one KPI which is related to the problem that you believe you have. Now, there's a lot of potential problem, so it's hard for me to suggest the KPI because there's lots of different scenarios. But pick up one KPI that could be related to a problem that you believe you have, or a challenge, or something that you would like to improve. But yeah, KPI.
I've got as well. Schedule some time in your calendar for those emergency appointments. Just have blocks, because it's going to help with retention, profitability. If that's applicable to your practice and you're not doing it, that just seems like such an obvious thing to do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of practice which are doing it, but to do it well is also important, because we also see practices who are scheduling blocks, but they remove it sometime too late. So we end up with blocks for on-the-day appointments or urgent appointments, which end up not being filled because maybe they've been released too late. Okay, so there's a lot of potential issue, and it really depends on the practice. You could have a receptionist which is which is very who sends very well and who understands very well the demand of customer, but you might have a receptionist who actually doesn't release too early, for example, or release too late. And these are the scenarios that you need to identify in order to identify the KPI that you want to measure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's for me, when we started this conversation, it's fascinating how many things can come out of just simple analyzation of the calendar. So, for what it's worth, there's some data, there's some ideas. And I think it was really great, Julien. Thanks for sharing that. I'll give people ask time for a few more questions. I do have one, Julien. What does Vetstoria have for benchmarks around surgery KPIs as well? Or do you have any benchmarks or data around surgery?
For the same reason I explained earlier, we don't look at that part of the business yet.
Yeah, makes sense. Another quick one here is, what are some simple ways to optimize the schedule? And I'll give you a tee up here. Get ready for it. It's a softball. It's called Talkatoo.
But I mean, yeah, you're right. More time caring means less time doing all the ancillary tasks that your practice has to do to run the business. And part of it is to, yes, writing the clinical reports. It's something that takes a lot of time. If you can spend a few more minutes per pet simply because the software does, make your reporting easier, certainly, yes.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, one of the things that we found out in creating the dictation tool, Julien, is that it works for a bunch of our customers. We have thousands of people that use it every day, but then we found that there's other people that just even this fact of sitting in front of the computer to do the notes slows them down. So we created a new product called Verify by Talkatoo, where vets can just talk right into their phone. And we have a team of vet techs will type it up and actually put it in the record. And it's like literally, if you can move a couple percentage points of utilization, you can have such a major impact on the profitability of the product of the practice. And that's what all of this data was about. It's like, we don't know the individual businesses that are represented on the call, but if we can leave you with one thing, which is, if you measure something, it's likely to improve, and I think we'd love to encourage you guys to go out there and find out what you want to improve in your business, and then just start simple. Put a spreadsheet together, write it on a whiteboard. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated.
No, it's, as I say, it's not scary. Well, it sounds a bit scary, but it's so useful to deliver very clear goal to the staff and a very clear target. I mean, when the targets are clear, things start to happen. If it's, let's try to improve this, and if we don't have a clear goal, it's much harder to achieve this target.
Well, sir, thank you very much for coming. I'm going to do a little demo of Talkatoo, which we do at the end of every webinar. Thanks, everybody, for joining. If you don't want to see the demo of Talkatoo, or you've already seen it, you don't need to stay. I'm going to launch into that right now. Julien, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man.
Okay.
See you
I
later.
want to see the talk demo too.
You're invited to stay, my friend. So this is Talkatoo, everybody. Little tiny widget that runs on your computer. All you need to do to use the software is press the button and put the cursor where you want the text to go, and then talk. Thanks so much for joining us for our webinar today. It was really great to have you here, Julien. And let's do this again. Have a great day, everybody. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And that's Talkatoo. If you're interested in Talkatoo, check out our website, talkatoo.com. If you're interested in Julien and Vetstoria, check out Vetstoria. It was lovely to have you here, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.